My sister Lisa stood in front of our entire family at Thanksgiving dinner and announced that my children couldn't possibly be my husband's because they looked nothing like him. 23 relatives sat frozen around my mother's dining table, forks suspended midway to their mouths, as Lisa's wine-fueled accusation hung in the air like a knife waiting to drop. What she didn't know was that my 7-year-old daughter, Penny, was holding an envelope our dying father had given her 3 months earlier. He'd made her promise to deliver it to Aunt Lisa, but only if Aunt Lisa was being mean to Mommy. As Lisa continued her cruel speech about genetics and family resemblance, Penny quietly unzipped her butterfly purse and pulled out that envelope, the one with DNA test results written across the front in my father's shaky handwriting. "I'm Maya, and I need to tell you about the Thanksgiving that destroyed and rebuilt my entire family in the span of 30 minutes. I'm 34 years old, a mother of 2, married to my high school sweetheart Nathan, and until that day, I thought I knew everything about my family. I thought I knew why my sister hated me. I thought I knew why my mother always took her side. I thought I knew why my father spent his dying days organizing paperwork and meeting with lawyers. I was wrong about everything. Lisa is my older sister by 3 years. She's the one who got the blonde hair, the blue eyes, the law degree, and the husband who drives a Mercedes. She married Garrett when she was 25, had 3 beautiful children who look like they stepped out of a Ralph Lauren catalog, and lives in a house with a pool and a 3-car garage. At 37, she's everything our mother wanted us to become. Then there's my daughter, Penny, 7 years old with bright green eyes and auburn hair that catches fire in the sunlight. She's the kind of child who reads books meant for kids twice her age and asks questions that make adults uncomfortable. That Thanksgiving, she was wearing her favorite purple dress with unicorns on it, the butterfly purse she takes everywhere, and a secret from Grandpa that would change everything. My mother, Dorothy, sat at the head of the table that day, 71 years old, silver-haired, wearing the pearl necklace my father gave her on their 40th anniversary. She's the type of woman who never raises her voice, never loses her composure, and never, ever admits when she's wrong. For as long as I can remember, she's been the family's moral compass, the one who decided what was proper and what wasn't. That day, she would finally break her silence about a secret she'd kept for 40 years. The envelope in Penny's purse wasn't just any DNA test. It was a paternity test my father had ordered 6 months before he died, using hair samples he'd collected over the years. But it wasn't testing my children's DNA against Nathan's. It was testing Lisa's DNA against his own. My father, Robert, had known he wasn't Lisa's biological father for 40 years, and he'd taken that secret almost to his grave. Almost. Because 3 months before that Thanksgiving, as cancer ate away at his body, he'd called Penny into his hospital room alone. He'd given her that envelope and made her promise to be his little messenger. "Sometimes, sweetheart," he'd told her, "people need to see the truth about themselves before they can stop hurting others with their lies." At that moment, as Lisa stood there accusing me of infidelity, of betraying my husband, of living a lie while the whole family whispered behind my back, she had no idea she was about to receive proof that she was the family's biggest secret. The golden child, the perfect daughter, the one who could do no wrong, was about to discover that her entire identity was built on a foundation my mother had desperately tried to keep buried. My husband, Nathan, sat beside me, his calloused mechanic's hands clenched into fists under the table. He's not a man of many words, never has been in the 12 years we've been married, but I could feel the anger radiating from him. Our son Jasper, just 5 years old, was in the kids' room watching cartoons, blissfully unaware that his aunt was tearing his mother apart in front of everyone who was supposed to love us. The other faces around that table would become witnesses to the kind of family revelation that usually only happens in movies. There was Uncle Carl, my father's younger brother, who knew more than he'd ever let on. My cousin Delia, who'd been spreading rumors about my children's paternity for years. Aunt Margaret, my mother's sister, whose sharp intake of breath when Penny stood up suggested she might have suspected the truth all along. But in that moment, as Lisa's accusation hung over the table like a storm cloud, none of them mattered. All that mattered was the little girl in the purple unicorn dress, standing up on her chair with an envelope that would reveal who in our family had really been living a lie. The DNA test that was supposed to expose my shame would instead expose 40 years of deception, $2 million in hidden trust funds, and the real reason my mother had spent my entire life choosing Lisa over me. This is the story of how my 7-year-old daughter delivered the truth that set our entire family free, and how sometimes the people pointing fingers are the ones with the most to hide. Growing up in the shadow of Lisa Wellington Clark wasn't just difficult. It was like living in a house where all the mirrors only reflected her. She was born 3 years before me, and according to family legend, she came out beautiful, barely cried, and slept through the night at 2 weeks old. When I arrived, screaming and colicky, with a birthmark on my shoulder and dark hair that stuck up in every direction, the comparisons began immediately. Our childhood home in suburban Minneapolis was a 4-bedroom colonial where everything had its place, especially us. Lisa's room was at the front of the house, overlooking the tree-lined street, painted in the soft pink she'd chosen at age 5. Mine was in the back, facing the garage, painted yellow because Mom said it would brighten the space. Even our rooms told the story of who mattered more. Lisa excelled at everything without trying. She was captain of the debate team, homecoming queen, and graduated summa cum laude from law school. She met Garrett at a charity gala, the kind of event where people bid thousands of dollars on weekend getaways they'll never take. He was already a partner at his firm, drove a BMW, and looked like he'd walked out of a Brooks Brothers catalog. They married at the country club with 300 guests and a string quartet. I met Nathan at 17 when my beat-up Honda broke down in the school parking lot. He was under the hood of his own truck, grease on his hands, and offered to help. He fixed my car and refused to take any money, just asked if I wanted to grab a burger. We ate at a place where the vinyl booths were held together with duct tape, and I laughed more in those 2 hours than I had in months. Lisa called him Maya's little grease monkey when she first met him. She said it with a smile, but the words cut deep. Our weddings showed the difference perfectly. While Lisa had her country club extravaganza, Nathan and I got married in his parents' backyard with 50 guests and his grandmother's famous pulled pork. Lisa gave a toast that seemed sweet on the surface. I'm so happy Maya found someone who makes her feel special. The emphasis on feel wasn't lost on anyone. When I had Penny 7 years ago, the comments started immediately. "Oh, those green eyes, Nathan's are so dark, aren't they?" Lisa would say at every family gathering. "And that auburn hair must be from somewhere far back in the family tree." She'd laugh like she was making a harmless observation, but everyone heard the implication. The whispers started small, just exchanges of glances when Penny's features were mentioned, but they grew louder with time. The birth of Jasper 2 years later only added fuel to Lisa's fire. His olive skin and curly hair became her favorite talking points. "Isn't genetics funny?" she'd say. "You never know what you're going to get." Meanwhile, her 3 children with Garrett looked like they'd been ordered from a catalog. Twins Colton and Bryce with perfectly styled blonde hair and blue eyes, and little Hazel, who looked exactly like Lisa did in our childhood photos. Dad saw everything, but said little. Robert Brennan was a man who fixed problems with his hands, not his words. He owned a construction company, built half the commercial buildings in our town, and showed love through action rather than affection. But in his final months, cancer changed him. He became observant in a different way, like he was cataloging every interaction, every slight, every moment of pain Lisa caused me. 3 months. Before that fateful Thanksgiving, Dad called each grandchild to his hospital room for private conversations. With the twins, he talked about being strong leaders. With Hazel, about kindness. With Jasper, he sang silly songs. But with Penny, he spent an entire hour. When she came out, she was carrying her butterfly purse closer than usual, and she was unusually quiet. "What did Grandpa talk to you about?" I asked her in the car. "Secrets," she said simply. He said sometimes grown-ups keep secrets to protect people, but sometimes secrets hurt more than the truth. I thought it was just one of Dad's philosophical moments. He'd been having many of them as the cancer progressed, talking about legacy and truth and the weight of unspoken words. He'd even started organizing decades of paperwork, meeting with lawyers and making what he called arrangements for after. Mom had been different during those months too. Dorothy Brennan, the woman who never showed weakness, had become increasingly fragile. She'd sit by Dad's bedside holding his hand, and sometimes I'd catch them looking at each other with an intensity that suggested conversations I wasn't privy to. Once I heard her whisper, "Robert, maybe it should stay buried with us." His response was firm. 40 years of watching one daughter destroy the other is enough, Dorothy. The truth needs its day. I didn't understand then. I thought maybe he was delirious from the medication. But looking back, every piece was falling into place for the explosion that would come at Thanksgiving dinner, when the family's perfect daughter would learn she was the product of the very thing she'd spent years accusing me of. Thanksgiving at Mom's house always followed the same script. We'd arrive at noon, Lisa would already be there having helped with the decorations, and she'd greet us with that smile that never quite reached her eyes. This year was no different, except Dad's chair sat empty at the head of the table, a glaring reminder that this was our first holiday without him. The trouble started before we even sat down to eat. Lisa was in the kitchen with Mom, and I overheard her saying, "I'm just saying, Maya should be grateful Nathan's so trusting. Not many men would raise kids that obviously aren't theirs without asking questions." Mom's response was barely audible, something about letting it go, but Lisa's laugh rang out clear. "Oh, please, Mother, even Stevie Wonder could see those kids don't match." Nathan heard it too. I saw his jaw tighten as he helped Penny take off her coat. "You okay?" I whispered. He kissed my forehead and said, "I'm fine." She's the one with the problem. But I could see the hurt in his eyes. 12 years of marriage, 2 beautiful children, and my sister had managed to plant seeds of doubt that grew like weeds at every family gathering. By the time we sat down for dinner, Lisa had consumed most of a bottle of Pinot Grigio. She gets bolder when she drinks, her filter dissolving with each glass. Garrett tried to slow her down, but she waved him off. "It's Thanksgiving, honey. Let me be thankful for the truth." The table was full, 23 family members spanning 3 generations. Uncle Carl had brought his new girlfriend, Aunt Margaret came with her grown sons, and various cousins filled the spaces between. It should have been a time for gratitude and memory sharing about Dad, but Lisa had other plans. It started when Uncle Carl mentioned how much Penny reminded him of our paternal grandmother. "Those green eyes are definitely from the Brennan side," he said warmly. "Mother had the same emerald color." Lisa's fork clattered against her plate. "Oh, Uncle Carl, stop it. We all know those green eyes didn't come from the Brennan side or Nathan's side. They came from wherever Maya got them during one of Nathan's long shifts at the garage." The table went silent. Even the kids stopped talking. 5-year-old Jasper looked up from his mashed potatoes, confused. "Mommy, what does Aunt Lisa mean?" "Nothing, sweetheart," I managed, my voice shaking. "Aunt Lisa is just being silly." "I'm not being silly." Lisa stood up, wine glass in hand. "I'm being honest. Something this family has a real problem with. Look at them, everyone. Look at Penny's auburn hair, those green eyes, that complexion. Look at Jasper's olive skin and curls. Now look at Nathan. Brown eyes, black straight hair, pale skin. The math doesn't work, and we all know it." Nathan's chair scraped against the floor as he started to stand, but I put my hand on his arm. "Don't. She's drunk." "In vino veritas," Lisa quoted, raising her glass. "In wine there is truth, and the truth is my sister has been lying to all of us, especially to her husband, and we all just sit here pretending not to notice." Cousin Delia, who'd always been Lisa's echo, chimed in. "She does have a point. I mean, we've all wondered." "Wondered what?" Nathan's voice was dangerously quiet. "Wondered if I'm too stupid to know my own children? Wondered if I can't do basic math? Or wondered why none of you have the guts to say this garbage to my face instead of whispering behind our backs?" Mom finally spoke, but her words were wrong, all wrong. "Everyone just calm down. Lisa, sit down. Nathan, she doesn't mean it the way it sounds." "How else could she mean it, Dorothy?" Nathan rarely used Mom's first name. "She's calling your daughter a cheater and me a fool." Lisa laughed, actually laughed. "If the shoe fits." That's when I noticed Penny had climbed onto her chair. My quiet, reserved daughter, who usually tried to make herself invisible during family conflicts, was standing up, her butterfly purse clutched in her small hands. "Aunt Lisa," Penny's voice rang out clear and strong. "Grandpa said you would do this. He said you would be mean to Mommy about me and Jasper. He said when you did, I should give you this. She pulled out a white envelope from her purse. I could see Dad's handwriting on the front. For Lisa, the truth. Lisa's face went from triumphant to confused. What is this? Some kind of joke? Grandpa said it's a DNA test, Penny announced to the silent room, but not for Mommy, for you. The color drained from Lisa's face so fast I thought she might faint. Mom stood up abruptly, her chair falling backward. No, Penny, sweetheart, you don't understand. But Penny, brave little Penny, held the envelope out toward Lisa. Grandpa said the truth needs its day. He said you would understand what that means. Lisa's hand trembled as she reached for the envelope, and the entire room held its breath, waiting for the explosion that would reshape our family forever. Lisa snatched the envelope from Penny's small hand with such force that my daughter nearly fell off her chair. Nathan caught her, lifting her into his protective arms while Lisa stared at the envelope like it might bite her. The entire room remained frozen, 23 people watching as my sister's perfectly manicured fingers trembled against the white paper. This is ridiculous, Lisa said, but her voice had lost its earlier venom. What kind of sick game is this? Dad's been dead for 3 months, and suddenly there's a DNA test. Maya, did you put her up to this? I didn't know anything about it, I said honestly. Penny, when did Grandpa give you this? Penny, still in Nathan's arms, spoke clearly. 3 months ago, in the hospital. He made me promise to keep it secret until Aunt Lisa was mean about me and Jasper not looking like Daddy. He said I would know when the time was right. Mom moved toward Lisa, her face pale. Lisa, honey, you don't have to open that. We can just forget this whole thing happened. Forget? Lisa whirled on her. My dead father apparently orchestrated some elaborate reveal from beyond the grave, using a 7-year-old as his messenger, and you want me to forget about it? Uncle Carl stood up slowly. Lisa, maybe you should sit down before you open that. You know something, Lisa accused, pointing at him. You know what's in here, don't you? Carl exchanged a look with Mom that confirmed Lisa's suspicion. Your father discussed some things with me before he passed. What things? Garrett finally spoke up, moving to his wife's side. What's going on here? Lisa ripped open the envelope with sudden determination. Inside were several papers. Her eyes scanned the first page, a letter in Dad's distinctive handwriting. As she read, her lips moved silently, and then she began reading aloud, her voice growing more hysterical with each word. My dear family, if you're reading this, it means Lisa has once again accused her sister of something that should make her look in the mirror instead. 40 years ago, Dorothy and I separated for 3 months. It wasn't public. We told everyone Dorothy was caring for her sick mother in California. During that time, Dorothy had a relationship with Vincent Thorne, her high school sweetheart who was in town for his father's funeral. Mom sank into her chair, covering her face with her hands. Robert, why? She whispered to the empty chair where Dad should have been sitting. Lisa continued reading, her voice cracking. When Dorothy returned, she was pregnant. I knew the child couldn't be mine, but I loved Dorothy, and I wanted our marriage to work. We reconciled, and I agreed to raise the baby as my own. Lisa, you became my daughter the moment you were born, not because of DNA, but because of choice. This is a lie, Lisa said, but she was already pulling out the other papers, the actual DNA test results. The header was from a reputable laboratory, dated 2 weeks before Dad's death. The results were clear. Probability of paternity between Robert Brennan and Lisa Wellington Clark, 0%. A second test was attached. Probability of paternity between Vincent Thorne and Lisa Wellington Clark, 99.99%. You had an affair? Lisa screamed at Mom. You, the woman who made us go to church every Sunday, who lectured me about purity, who told me reputation was everything? You had an affair? Mom finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't an affair. Your father and I were separated. We were getting divorced. Vincent was there, and I was weak. And then when I found out I was pregnant, Robert took me back. He forgave me. He raised you as his own. But you knew. Lisa's voice broke completely. Every time I asked why my eyes were so much bluer than everyone else's, every time I wondered why I was the only blonde in a family of brunettes, you knew, And you let me torture Maya about her kids when I was the one who was actually—" She couldn't finish the sentence. The irony was too heavy, too devastating. Uncle Carl cleared his throat. "There's more, Lisa. Vincent Thorne knew about you. He's been sending money every month for 40 years. Your father never touched it. It's in a trust, waiting for you. Robert wanted you to have it once you knew the truth." "How much?" Garrett asked, ever the practical lawyer. $2.3 million with interest," Carl answered. Lisa laughed, but it was a broken sound. "He paid Mom off? My biological father paid to stay away?" "No," Mom said firmly. "Vincent wanted to be involved, but Robert wouldn't allow it. The money was Vincent's way of taking responsibility. Robert called it blood money and refused to touch it, but he also couldn't bring himself to refuse it on your behalf." The room was spinning with revelations. Lisa looked around at all of us, her family who had just discovered that the golden child, the perfect daughter, the one who could do no wrong, was living proof of the very betrayal she'd spent years accusing me of. "I need to leave," Lisa said, grabbing her purse. But she stopped at Penny, still in Nathan's arms, and asked in a broken whisper, "Did Grandpa say anything else?" Penny nodded. "He said to tell you that being chosen is better than being born because it means someone wanted you enough to decide you were theirs." Lisa's scream shattered the silence, like a wine glass thrown against marble. It wasn't just a sound of surprise or anger. It was the primal cry of someone watching their entire identity crumble. She threw the papers at Mom, and they scattered across the Thanksgiving table, landing in the gravy boat and cranberry sauce. 40 years, Lisa screamed. 40 years of lies. Every birthday, every Father's Day, every time Dad called me his little princess, it was all a lie. "It wasn't a lie," Mom said, reaching for her, but Lisa recoiled like she'd been burned. "Robert loved you completely. You were his daughter in every way that mattered. Except the way that actually matters." Lisa turned to face the entire room, mascara streaming down her cheeks. "Do you all understand what this means? I've spent years making comments about Maya's children, suggesting she was unfaithful, implying Nathan was naive, and the whole time I was the walking proof of an affair." Garrett tried to steady his wife, but she pushed him away. "Did you know? Did any of you know?" Aunt Margaret, Mom's sister, slowly raised her hand. "I suspected. When Dorothy came back from California, she was different. And Vincent had been in town exactly 9 months before you were born, but Robert made it clear we were never to discuss it." "So everyone knew except me?" Lisa's voice rose even higher. "The family joke? Poor Lisa prancing around like she owns the place, not knowing she's not even really a Brennan?" That's when Nathan stood up, setting Penny down gently. My quiet husband, who avoided confrontation like the plague, walked directly to Lisa. "You want to know the difference between you and Penny? Between you and Jasper?" His voice was steady, controlled, but there was steel underneath. "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because Robert Brennan chose to be your father, just like I chose to be theirs. And for the record," he pulled out his phone, swiping to a photo I'd never seen before. It was his mother as a young woman, and the resemblance to Penny was undeniable. Same green eyes, same auburn hair, same delicate features. "This is my mother at age 8. Penny is her spitting image. But even if she wasn't, even if she looked nothing like me, she would still be mine because that's what I chose the day she was born. And one more thing," Nathan continued, his voice gaining strength. "Your biological father, Vincent Thorne, he's been living in Portland for the last 30 years. He has 3 other children, all blonde, all blue-eyed, all looking exactly like you. He sent that money because Robert wouldn't let him near you, but he never stopped hoping you'd reach out. I know because he contacts me every year on your birthday." The room gasped collectively. Even I hadn't known this. "He contacts you," Lisa whispered. "Why you?" "Because I fix his brother's cars. He knows I'm married. To Maya. He asks about you every single time, shows me pictures of your half-siblings, wonders if you're happy. That man who you've never met loves you from a distance in a way that's both heartbreaking and beautiful. Meanwhile, the man who raised you, who went to every recital, who walked you down the aisle, who died 3 months ago still protecting your feelings, you're calling him a liar? Uncle Carl stood up then, pulling out his phone. Lisa, there's something else. Robert made a video before he died. He asked me to play it if this moment ever came. Before anyone could object, Carl had connected his phone to Mom's smart TV. Dad's face appeared on the screen, gaunt from cancer, but his eyes still sharp. His voice filled the room. Lisa, if you're watching this, it means the truth has finally come out. I want you to know that keeping this secret wasn't about shame or protecting Dorothy. It was about protecting you. You were my little girl from the moment I first held you. Biology didn't make you mine. My choice did. Every baseball game, every birthday party, every time you called me daddy, those were the moments that mattered. I watched you grow up favored by your mother because she carried guilt I told her not to feel. I watched you become harsh with Maya because somewhere deep down, I think you sensed you were different. But different doesn't mean less than. It means chosen. Vincent Thorne might be your biological father, but I'm your dad. I always have been, and death doesn't change that. Use the money he left for something good. Make peace with your sister. And remember, the only lie in our relationship was the one that said blood is the only thing that makes a family. I love you, princess, forever and always. The video ended and Lisa collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. The sound was different from her earlier scream. This was the cry of someone grieving not just a revelation, but the loss of the man who'd loved her enough to keep a secret that must have burned him every time she insulted me. Penny walked over to Lisa and placed her small hand on her aunt's knee. Grandpa also said to tell you that pointing fingers means 3 point back at you, but love points everywhere. Lisa didn't speak to any of us for 3 months after that Thanksgiving. Garrett told me she spent those months in intensive therapy, sometimes twice a day, unraveling 40 years of identity, built on a foundation that had cracked wide open. She had to reconcile the person she thought she was with who she actually was, and more importantly, she had to face the cruelty she'd inflicted while standing on her false pedestal. The $2 million from Vincent Thorne became her path to redemption. She donated half to the Children's Defense Fund, specifically earmarked for children in foster care and adoption services. They need to know being chosen is a gift, she wrote in the donation letter, which she shared with us later. The other half, she used to start a foundation in Dad's name that provides free family counseling for those dealing with paternity issues and family secrets. Mom and I had our own reckoning during those 3 months. We met for coffee every Wednesday at a small cafe downtown where no one knew our family. The first meeting was silent for 20 minutes before she finally spoke. I failed you, Maya. I was so terrified that Lisa would somehow sense she was different that I overcompensated. Every time she was cruel to you, I let it happen because I thought if I defended you, she'd know something was wrong. You let her torture me for 40 years because of your guilt, I said, not angry anymore, just tired. Yes, she admitted simply. And Robert begged me to tell her the truth so many times. He said secrets have a way of poisoning everything they touch. He was right. I poisoned our family with my silence. It took time, but we rebuilt our relationship on honesty. Mom started therapy too, finally dealing with the guilt she'd carried for 4 decades. She told me about Vincent, about how he'd been her first love, how seeing him again during the separation had felt like coming home, and how choosing Robert afterward had been both the hardest and best decision she'd ever made. Vincent Thorne reached out to Lisa 6 months after Thanksgiving. They met at a neutral location, a park in Portland where his other children played. Lisa told me later that seeing her half-siblings was like looking at variations of herself. They all had the same blue eyes, the same blonde hair, the same laugh. Vincent was 71, a retired pediatrician who'd spent 40 years helping other people's children while aching for the daughter he never got to raise. He cried, Lisa told me. This man I'd never met just held my hands and cried, telling me he'd thought about me every single day. He showed me a box full of newspaper clippings. My high school graduation announcement, my wedding photos from the society pages, my kids' birth announcements. He'd been following my life from a distance, proud of every accomplishment. The most surprising transformation was in Lisa herself. She came to our house one evening 8 months after that Thanksgiving, carrying a box. Inside were DNA tests, but not the kind she'd once threatened me with. These were ancestry tests she'd bought for our entire extended family. "I want to know how we're all connected," she said. "The real ways, not just the obvious ones." The results were fascinating. Nathan's family and ours shared Irish ancestors from 4 generations back. Penny really did have great-great-grandmother Brennan's green eyes, passed down through Nathan's mother's side. Jasper's olive skin came from Nathan's Italian grandmother, whom none of us had known about because she'd died young. We were all more connected than we'd ever imagined. Lisa and I are different now, not perfect, but honest. She still lives in her big house with the pool, still married to Garrett, still raising her 3 kids who look like catalog models, but she doesn't make cutting comments anymore. Instead, she tells Penny and Jasper stories about Grandpa Robert, about how he taught her to ride a bike, to throw a curveball, to be brave. She tells them about choosing and being chosen. At this year's Thanksgiving, Lisa stood up before dinner and said, "I'm grateful for the father who chose me, the biological father who loved me from afar, the mother who protected me even when she shouldn't have, the sister who forgave me when I didn't deserve it, and for Penny, who had the courage to deliver a truth that saved us all from drowning in lies." Penny, now 8 and even wiser, simply said, "Grandpa knew the truth would hurt at first, but lies hurt forever." The DNA test that was meant to expose my supposed shame instead revealed that families aren't built on blood alone. They're built on choices, on forgiveness, on the decision to love even when the truth is messy and complicated. Dad knew that. He lived it for 40 years, and in his final act, he made sure we all learned it too. Sometimes I think about that Thanksgiving and how different our lives would be if Penny hadn't stood up on that chair. We'd still be living in the shadow of Lisa's accusations, Mom's guilt, and Dad's unspoken truth. Instead, we're living in the light, imperfect but honest, chosen, and choosing each other every single day. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever dealt with family secrets or the weight of unspoken truths, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your own story matters too, so leave a comment below about a time when the truth, however painful, set you free. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real, raw stories about families finding their way through the messiest moments to something better on the other side. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, being chosen is always better than being born into something, because it means someone decided you were worth it.